What does carbon-free mean? One of the things that I want to try to make clear, this is a very complex topic, of course, in general. One of the things that's interesting and hard about this is how complex it is. But specifically, kind of what it means is your generation portfolio has to change. And so this slide tries to unpack at a high level for the state, what does the generation portfolio changing mean? Where are we at basically now? 2019 is a year where we have complete set of annual data, so that's essentially a recent snapshot. And where do we have to get to by 2040 in order to achieve this mandate? So you can see, hopefully you can read those colors fairly well on the map there, that 25% is coal in 2019. So coal has to go away by 2040. And the specific links at the bottom of this slide, or if you search MISO, I'm going to talk about MISO and their reliability concerns in a moment, but if you search MISO, you can actually see any particular moment of the day what our generation resource portfolio looks like right now, because they're tracking that in real time. It often looks pretty similar to this 2019 total. So you got to get the coal to zero. You got to get natural gas to zero. Again, that's a significant part of this slide of the 17.5%. Wind and solar obviously have to increase significantly in order to meet this standard by 2040. Hydropower is considered carbon-free in the bill. It actually wasn't considered carbon-free prior to this legislation, but it is now. But hydropower is not a resource where we're going to build a whole bunch of new hydropower, of course. There can be no new nuclear, not because nuclear is not considered carbon-free. It is. There's no emissions from nuclear power. But there's a separate moratorium on new nuclear power in the state that didn't get changed in this legislation. So one of the things that about generation resource mix, not for co-ops, because we don't have any nuclear power plants, but Excel, it was very important to them that they preserve their existing nuclear as long as possible. So nuclear will continue to be part of the mix for a while. They'll continue to try to extend the licensing for their existing nuclear plants. And there's some work going on, possibly a study in this legislative session, to think about whether nuclear might be a part of the resource mix in terms of new sources at some point. But right now in Minnesota, there's a moratorium on that. Innovation is required. Okay, so this is the two kind of major themes here are, here's a little bit specifically about how the generation resource has to shift, and the other major theme is you certainly have to increase wind and solar a lot, but you also have to do some innovation to figure out how you're really going to get there and keep the system reliable and affordable in the 2040 timeframe, because because there's a lot of generation that has to be available, and you have to make sure that it's there all the time and reliably. And another key thing to understand about this is the generation portfolio is not just sort of a sideshow in the electric utility industry. We're a very capital-intensive industry, so we spend a lot on infrastructure in order to get electricity to you, and roughly 60% of everything you spend on electricity goes to feed generation sources, goes to pay for generation sources, roughly 60 cents of every dollar. That's not a Lake Region specific statistic, but nationally, as a rough rule of thumb, 60% of all the dollars we spend as an industry go to take care of these generations. So this is a monumental change, because 60% of everything you spend has to shift from what's on the left to the bullets on the right by 2040.